From the Bent Pixel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting, an absolutely free podcast covering the world of mixed martial arts and beyond. With me,
it's Richard Hunter, two-time funniest man of Reno, Naga silver medalist, and future MMA fighter.
The resume's getting longer. And that guy, the two-time UFC heavyweight champion and current Bellator heavyweight contender, Frank Mir.
Hey, man, it's great to be here. I'm happy that we're getting going. We kind of missed the schedule on this one.
Yes, people automatically blame me when that happens.
Guys, I've been up since I left the house at 6:30 a.m. this morning. So that's my typical day. I mean, on average. And today I actually did some stuff I can't talk about just yet, but obviously things I was telling you about
gay
my
porn.
new...
That's it. In fact, I've said too much already, so I'll just leave it there. Yeah,
they get paid quite well. So, some stuff with depositions and whatnot and future expert witness.
You're not being
work.
Sued?
No, okay. Actually, it looks like I'm an expert witness now. So hopefully I can allude to more details in the future as court cases come to an end. But, look, man, typically I get up in the morning. Like we get up at 6. I drop the kids off at school. I go straight to the gym and I lift weights. I got about an hour and a half from 8 to about 9:30. Then I zip over to my first teaching session at 10 o'clock. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach at Syndicate. I teach a no-gi grappling class that's MMA orientated. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go to Robert Drysdale's at Zenith, Drysdale's Jiu-Jitsu, and I teach an MMA stand-up class at that point. And then at 11:30, it's my turn to train. I fly down to, if I'm not at Syndicate already, I drive down there as quickly as I can, do the pro class from 11:30 till 1 o'clock, 1-ish. I go home, I get to take a quick nap, and then by the time 3 o'clock hits, because I usually get home about 2 after I get my meal in, and 3 o'clock hits, 2:45, I'm up. I go down to Meadows, and I pick the 2 boys up from school, but I don't actually pick them up. At 3:15, I meet them inside the gym. Actually, today, Cage bench pressed 135 for 3 reps on his bench press.
Wow.
Yeah, not bad for a 12-year-old.
No,
right?
not at all.
And so I lift with them, him and Ronan, for till about 4:30. Then we go home, we eat, we try to do some quick, get some of their homework done. But Cage has been really good so far, getting most of his done in study hall. They have to be at football practice at 6 o'clock. And that's when I drop them off, and then usually at whatever errands I have to run or take care of, as far as lights are out, garbage needs to be, it has to be adjusted, the car. The winds were so bad that my cover on my classic car was ripped up. That's my time to do that type of stuff, run around and grab it. 8 o'clock, I go pick the kids up, or typically run the podcast. But I've had some things come up that, with Mrs. Mir that we've had to take care of. That's been a little bit of it's a big issue that it's on a personal note, but we're having to take care of, and so that's been my time in the evening. At 8 o'clock, I pick the kids up. We get home at 8:30, feed them dinner, finish homework, and then we're in bed, and then repeat the process.
Somewhere you worked in a trip to Arkansas during all that.
Yeah,
well, Arkansas for a seminar.
Yeah, I took off Friday night. I got there, and I was doing it really for my friend Troy Corder. He's basically like a younger brother to me. I mean, he's basically Mrs. Mir. That's how I met him. He was her younger brother, for lack of a better term. Her sister and Troy had dated in high school, and he's just a good guy. And even though they were high school sweethearts, it never worked out that way. They've gone on to marry other individuals. He has a beautiful wife now, Jess, that he has 2 awesome kids with. And so, but he owns a granite company, and he's very well-to-do businessman, man. 32 years old, owns his own house, trucks, owns his own business. He does granite, and but he played football. He actually trained for a little bit for me when he was out here. Really good athlete, and just always been into lifting weights. Enjoys it. So he bought a phenomenal gym out there, a world gym. It's one of the nicest gyms I've ever been in. Like, I walked around. It's 2 stories. It's like awesome. Yeah. There was a part of me that was a little pained that it's now, a 3-hour flight away from me. Yeah. And so I did an appearance there just to help him, do like an opening. He's owned it for about a month now, month and a half, help bring some attention, which kind of it was a good challenge because when I got there, I seen the list of people that had signed up, and several people wanted pictures and autographs, but not a lot of people actually wanted to train because it's a weightlifting gym. But a few people signed up.
Do you have any names on there like IP Freely?
Yeah.
Nothing like that?
Well, the people that signed up, I think about 2 of them had martial arts experience.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else was just like, from moms there with their daughters signed up like, oh, it'll be cool. We'll try this out. I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever taught a seminar to somebody that this is their absolutely first day ever stepping on a mat.
Boy, this is like I'm going to have my first guitar lesson with Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, that's how it worked out. So very quickly, I actually brought out some of the old things I used to work on when I worked as a bouncer that I would help the other bouncers with.
Just in case any of these soccer moms want to get a job bouncing at a strip club in Arkansas.
Well, it was just basically my street fighting techniques, basically the sequence that I go through that doesn't require me to hit somebody.
Right.
And I always thought that was good to teach the bouncers because it's never good to bust a guy's face up because whether you're right or you're wrong, if the police show up and his nose is sticking out of his ear, you look really wrong right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when you're 300 pounds plus and the guy's probably a 160-pound drunk guy who just didn't know better. He thought that saying of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas actually meant something.
Right.
And so everybody acts like an asshole when they're out of town. And so I went through that whole system of how I, take the back, choke people. I taught 3 chokes, one from the behind, one from a body lock, jiu-jitsu one-on-one that probably people learned the first day, how to do a body lock properly, take them down into the mount. I showed the head and arm choke, and then I showed, and each one basically capitalized off the next one. I try to do the pull to the back. If you block that, it leads me to the bear hug. If you block that because you pull your hips back, it leads me to a snap down to a front headlock, a guillotine, and a finish there. And by the time I got through, you got to learn the principles of a little bit of takedowns, a little bit of motion, how to incapacitate somebody without hitting them, which is always a plus on a civil side, So it was actually interesting to sit there and actually, by myself, have to teach a room full of individuals that a majority of them had never, ever wrestled even a day in their life.
You were running down that schedule earlier, and I tell you what, when I hear stuff like that now, and full disclosure, I got to tell you while this is running through my mind, you're talking about the first half of the day sounds like mine now, which is we both train at Syndicate, and then I show up at your striking class at Drysdale's and all that because I'm trying to cram in as much information as I can before my fight at the end of the year.
You missed yesterday. We did some good leg slips.
I will be there tomorrow. But the second half of the day is when I go deal with hookers, and you turn your attention toward family.
Yes.
But I was... When you're running...
See, we're actually on opposite ends of the spectrum. See, I'm dealing with young minds and trying to cultivate them into a very constructive, fulfilling life that gives back to society. Well, I guess your girls give back to society.
They do. They do. They're healers.
As Chris Rock says.
They're therapists.
I'm trying to keep my kids off the stripper pole.
Yes. Well, as you run through that second half of your day, I think about the time that I'm saving not having kids. But
you save a lot of time, money.
But I'll tell you this. So Jennifer was out of town basically the better part of the last week because she went back home to visit her best friend, childhood friend or whatever. Well, the childhood friends had a baby. So now she's met a baby. And so now she's like she's the godmother, right? Which I told her. I said, listen, this is all fun, and you get a coffee mug that says fairy godmother, whatever. But I say, if those two people meet with unfortunate demise, we're on the hook here. You understand that, right? And but anyway, it's not like she's not ready to declare that she would like to do that. But I can see starting to get the pictures with the baby and everything. And,
it's a rare woman that does not get baby fever.
Right. But it's more like it's not like a baby warning, it's a baby watch. You know what I'm saying? Like conditions are such that it's at least starting to cross the mind. I mean, it's nothing that I would necessarily be opposed to in a certain sense, but I still think of it in terms of like we're going to go to Disneyland for my birthday, and we're going to ride everything, and we're not worried about who's standing at the bottom of the ride holding the third wheel. You know what I mean?
Leaving the house it's just gotten somewhat back to normal. But I mean, for the first, last 15 years when I had little
15
children,
years,
leaving the house changed. I mean, before someone says, "Hey, let's go run to this, let's go to, the store. Let's go run out and grab a pizza." Mm-hmm. Cool. I'll get my keys. At most, you might go, "Hey, have you seen my cell phone?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's about the most looking around and negotiating. Do I want to wear my flip-flops or am I actually going to put socks to put shoes on? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, these are the decisions I had to make before I had Bella. Mm-hmm. Then once you have children, it's like, if you want to go somewhere, I tell people, like, man, you got to give me like a 20-minute heads up before I even leave the house. Prepping kids, you gotta, do I have the bottle, the formula, the diapers, the diaper bag? Yeah. Okay, oh shit, there's not wipes in here. The car seat, loading it up, a change of outfit in case, someone spits up. Mm-hmm. And now that, all these things that you learn by trial and error, that you're out of the house and something occurs and you're like, shit, I don't have that with me. Walmart and Target are a lifesaver when you're a parent, because you can run there and, someone forgot their pacifier. Walmart.
Have you ever heard that old Louis C.K. joke where he was talking about he has 2 daughters, and this was like when the daughters were, 6 and 3 or whatever, and he's like, the older one I like because I can have conversations with her and stuff like that. He goes, but the younger one is really a pain in the ass, and crowd kind of laughs or whatever, and he goes, no, seriously, he goes, listen, if a group of people wants to leave the house, but they can't leave the house because one person in the group will not put their shoes on, that person is a fucking asshole.
Yeah. Ronin can be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe because now I'm starting not to have the patience as much for it because I'm so used to, Bella's a 15-year-old teenager. Cage is 12 years old. He's becoming a young man. He's a teenager, on the cusp of being an official teenager. So when I say, hey, we got to go, pretty self-explanatory. Ronan is still a 9-year-old. So there's times where I'm like, all right, we're leaving in 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes. I give him a heads up, And then all of a sudden, I'm like, where's Ronan? And I walk upstairs and he's staring at his iPad and his underwear. I'm like,
yeah. He's actually wearing less clothing than he was when you issued the announcement.
What happened? And then he starts walking around trying to stay on the iPad and just, like he's looking and he's like reaching out and he thinks he's grabbing. That's when that's why I get a little bit less than benevolent.
Yes.
That's where I physically will snatch the iPad out of his hand.
Yeah.
Put the iPad down, motherfucker.
Well, let's break down a whole fight card. Actually, it's a big weekend for the UFC coming up this weekend, and a big weekend for the biggest weekend of their career for a good friend of this show. We're talking about the Texecutioner, James Vick, UFC lightweight contender, number 10 ranked in the UFC's lightweight division. He is main eventing the UFC Fight Night Lincoln, Nebraska card. He's taken on Justin Gaethje, who himself is ranked number 7, a guy who came into the UFC, Gaethje did, undefeated, having been over in World Series of Fighting, and pretty much plowed through all the competition over there. Neither of these fighters, Frank, are known to shoot a lot of takedowns, so we're probably looking at a stand-up affair. Gaethje, of course, has he's made a career on that, just being in firefights. James Vick, of course, not only the tallest lightweight in the UFC, but one of the taller fighters in the UFC. Standing at where is his height there? 75 inches.
6'3".
6'3". Thank you for converting that. Appreciate that, Mikey. But certainly very tall for 155 pounds. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. And if you want to hear James actually on this story or on this show, this podcast, Phone Booth Fighting, go back a couple episodes. He Skyped in to talk about this fight. He was on with his training partner, Sadiq Youssef, who's now in the UFC as well by virtue of winning his Tuesday Night Contender Series fight. Another great guy and a listener to the show. But James, we were talking about the fact that the numbers that jump out to me, Frank, we were talking about this with James. Justin lands an average of 8 significant strikes per minute to Vick's 4, but this is the big number. Justin absorbs more than 10 significant strikes per minute. I mean, that's a guy who gets hit a lot, to state the obvious.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't like to move his head. He stays in there, and he throws a lot. He's very active. I mean, he'll sit there and he'll take a punch if he can keep chopping away at the legs. He's very tenacious with his combinations and throws, and he has really a very exciting style for a lot of fans to watch. But his defense at times can if you're a Gaethje fan, can leave you a little nervous. He blocks a lot of shots with his face. He's gritty and he's tough, and he's made it work for him. But I think he could be so much better at times. I think sometimes he's a victim of his own, bravado and toughness. Because, I mean, I looked it up again because remember I had this conversation. I forgot who I was speaking to, and they're like, well, he's an All-American Division I collegiate wrestler, right? And that blew my mind. I was like, he knows how to wrestle? They're like, really well. I'm like, and sure enough, I looked it up. I mean, the guy here, on Wikipedia, you could see it here as accolades. In high school, he began wrestling at the age of 4. I mean, the guy's been wrestling his whole life, where he was a 4-time finalist and a 2-time Arizona State champion as a wrestler. So a decent high school wrestler in the finals for, both his freshman and sophomore year, and won it his junior and senior year, I'm assuming, even though it doesn't say specifically. Then he wrestled for Northern Colorado, Division I college, and as a junior, he placed 7th at the NCAA tournaments at 157 pounds, the only guy they've ever had actually attain All-American status. I mean, you're always considered a pretty proficient wrestler if you're an All-American on a collegiate level. And watching him fight, I had no clue.
What would be the challenges of him, maybe genetically opposed to Vick, if nothing else, do you think, of possibly trying to go back to that? Because in 20 fights, there hasn't been a lot of evidence of that. So he's built a pro career on being a slugger. So it would maybe make sense, especially with Vick, who has a boxing background of his own and all of that height and reach advantage, of maybe trying to wrestle James. But is it like riding a bike? Is it just as easy to go back to from your college days, or?
Well, I mean, if he puts work in it in the camp, I think so. He's already developed those feels and sense of those patterns in his brain are already set. Now, but here's the problem. I don't know how he wrestled, because there's different styles of wrestling. Some translate very well over to MMA. Some don't. Rollins, right, from Oklahoma, who fought in MMA, very good wrestler, but his wrestling in college was very defensive. He had a very good front headlock. So when he would put his hands on guys, beat them up, and when they would shoot on him, he would punish them and score from there. Short offense, they call it in wrestling. Well, that style might work extremely well in wrestling, because typically guys will take shots on you and shoot, whereas if that's your style of wrestling where you're used to counter wrestling or going off of another guy's shot and punishing him for it, stuffing his face in the mat, hitting corners, ragdolling him with the front headlock and wearing him down, well, all of a sudden now you get up to an MMA career and you fight guys that aren't taking shots on you. So now your wrestling doesn't translate over, and that just it here nor there. That's why like Randy Couture was never, as far as I remember, he never won nationals on a collegiate level. And so his style of wrestling, he was very much oriented towards Greco, and that's where he actually has most of his accolades in the wrestling world. Well, Greco converts over pretty well, and the way he applied it to MMA, and that's why he was such a proficient wrestler in the world of MMA, because he knew how to wrestle out of the clinch. Well, fighting in the clinch in MMA is very similar to a Greco-Roman, minus the punches. The posture is much more upright, and I think that's why a lot of Greco-Roman guys, or guys that are strong in Greco, have an easy conversion over. So that whole statement, I don't know how Gaethje wrestled. If he didn't have a good shot, which not everybody does, maybe he's a good counter wrestler. And that's what got him to that level of being an All-American, because everybody would take shots on him and he would snap them down and wrestle from there. Well, if that's the case, it's not going to be a very easy thing. That if he didn't have a good shot his whole life, never really took head inside singles, or didn't have a low single or a double or head out or high crotch, or no kind of attack on the legs, well, developing it now, might not be, able to be done, or maybe not even his desire to do so. I don't know.
Well, and you're also going to be talking about going up against a taller opponent in a sport where knees are legal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more peril.
Vick is pretty good off his back.
Yeah.
Vick is long-limbed in his submissions and catching things. So, he isn't a guy that I would blindly just say, well, just when the opportunity presents itself, change levels and run him over. It's like, well, hold on, let's be careful here. If we shoot on him and don't control the takedown, we might end up in a triangle or, end up in a Kimura or a guillotine on the way down, and now we're in trouble. Those are long, thin arms. I don't really want them wrapped around my neck.
Yeah, Vick has 3 submissions in the UFC. Goes into this fight as a favorite. James Vick does -155. I know James would be happy to see that because he's big into the betting. He likes to give gambling picks in his off time. So anyway, we will be watching him in that main event here this weekend in Lincoln, Nebraska. The co-main events featuring a couple of featherweights, former lightweight Michael Johnson taking on the Team Alpha Male product Andre Feely. Michael Johnson is on a 3-fight skid here. Now, he's a guy who lost to Justin Gaethje 2 fights ago, and then he dropped down to 145. So he lost his first at 145, and now this is his second fight at featherweight. But a 3-fight skid for him. Feely is going the opposite way. He's on a 2-fight win streak, winning 3 of his last 4. All 4 of his last fights, Andre Feely's, have gone to decision. And prior to his last fight, which was a win over Dennis Bermudez, this is a crazy stat, Feely had alternated, Frank, wins and losses over his entire UFC career, dating back to 2013 and spanning 9 fights. So his first 9 fights in the UFC, win-lose, 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 win-lose. The first time he was on any kind of a streak, good or bad, was basically after his last fight with Dennis Bermudez. I mean, that is the epitome of a hot and cold record.
Yeah,
especially over that length of time.
And just also too, I'd have to look at his past opponents, who he's fighting. That's just the thing about the UFC. Again, when you're in one of the top promotions in the world,
click on Feely's name up there, and it'll pull up his record there, Mikey. All the people that he fought. Both these guys, by the way, while Mikey's doing that, are pretty evenly matched on paper. The only real numerical advantage you're going to see is that Feely averages almost 3 takedowns to Johnson's 0.61, basically. And then he'd expand full history there. So you can look at, his second fight in the UFC was a loss to Max Holloway. No shame there, obviously. No. Yair Rodriguez, he lost to him. Those were the 2 biggest names that he lost to. He's got wins over Dennis Bermudez. He's got a win over Hakron Diaz. So,
Yeah, I don't remember watching a Feely fight, so I don't know how to put much behind it. But, it definitely looks like a fight that, even though matched up, Johnson's been against steeper competition. I feel just looking at that, he should have the experience, advantage. And Johnson, I still feel, is a very good fighter. He has good hands. Sometimes he slaps with his left, but when he does throw it straight down the line, he's quick with it, and he's fast hands, and a decent all-around fighter. At one point, I thought he was making a pretty good climb there until the last couple of years. It seems like once he hit the top 5 level competition, it seems like that's where he really started hitting a wall.
Yeah. Well, it's an important fight for both these guys. Your feature bout of the evening, speaking of former guests here on Phone Booth Fighting, Angela Hill, number 14 ranked strawweight, is going to be taking on Courtney Casey. All of Angela Hill's wins in the UFC have come via decision, and all but one of her 7 UFC fights have gone to decision. Casey has 8 UFC fights, so just one more than Angela Hill, and she's gone 3-5 with all but one of those going to decision. So you know what this tells me? This fight's probably going to decision. Yeah. At least it says that on paper.
Yeah, Angela Hill, I think she's a pretty technical stand-up fighter as far as kickboxing goes. I've just, it's just more common with the women. They don't seem to sit down as much and throw as hard. It's just not as common with the power. I think overall that's actually why, if you look at the stats in the UFC specifically, the punches per round and per fight have actually gone up, and I think that's because of the inclusion of women, that they typically throw a lot more strikes without the same effect that happens over in the men's side.
Yeah. Both of these fighters have completed 2 of 4 takedown attempts in their UFC career, so neither lady is shooting for a lot of takedowns. So we're probably going to see a pretty technical battle on the feet, like you just said there, Frank. Also on this FS1 main card Saturday night is Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger taking on Bryan Barberena at 170 pounds. Now, this fight is taking place in Ellenberger's backyard. This is the area of the country that he's from. Ellenberger, Frank, is on a 3-fight skid, and he's only won 2 of his last 10, dating back to 2013. Barberena is coming off a decision loss to Leon Edwards last September. Both of these fighters average about a 70 to 75% KO rate, with Jake averaging 2 takedowns. But, with Ellenberger, as long as he's been around, you click on his record there, Mikey, thank you. You look at this streak. Now, I just told you the downside of it, which is the, 2 of the last 10. But go down to this hot streak that he was on from the time he beat Mike Pyle at the beginning of 2010 all the way up to when Martin Kampmann beat him at the middle of 2012. So for a 2-year period, he was on, starting with Mike Pyle, 6, a 6-fight win streak, and then after Ellenberger, he went on to win 2 more. So he won 8 of 9 during that period, and look at the fighters that he beat. Nate Marquardt, Jay Huron, Diego Sanchez, Jake Shields, Sean Pearson, Eduardo Roca, and John Howard, and I said Mike Pyle. So, boy, it seems like a long time ago, but man, that was a hot streak. He was talked about in title contention around that time.
Very well there.
Yeah,
and I remember. I think the last time I really remember watching Jake fight was the Jorge Masvidal fight. Remember when he got his foot stuck in the cage? That was one of the more. Why are you kind of smirking with that one?
You don't remember? You don't remember the controversy that went on in my personal life revolving around that fight and Jorge Masvidal?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I don't think we've still cleared that up, have we, officially?
No, we haven't. We've cleared it up through back channels, but one day when Jorge Masvidal hopefully eventually appears on this
I almost had him a couple.
I know.
I'm putting it
on you because you're managed by the same people.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I had him, and Jorge was supposed to show up. Remember, he stood us up at.
I do remember that.
Were we at Planet Hollywood?
No, we're at some hotel.
Yeah, what hotel were we at?
Was it the Cosmo? I think it was Cosmopolitan here in Vegas.
Man, I didn't have too much.
Yeah.
I do remember going to a hotel.
Yes.
And waiting to do an interview for him. And we sat there at the Starbucks and hung out and just. And then it was like.
We don't know what happened to him. I'll tell you where we ended up. We ended up in James Vick's hotel room.
That's right.
That's right, because he was there.
Yes.
And he picks up our call every time. So we're like, hey, we're here. We're in the lobby. We're going to come up with our gear and do a podcast in your room.
Did you know actually we were able to go ahead and do it again, but I was kind of pissed off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You gave him, you were cooling him?
Well, yeah. Then Abe called me back. He goes, he was busy, this and that, or something happened. There was some justification for the stand-up.
Okay.
And I still don't like being stood up.
Right, I understand.
So my ego took over, which at times does. And I was like, we can make it this time. I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well,
I'll let you know again another time.
Well, eventually we will get him on the show. People are probably wondering, what in the hell are these two guys talking about? Let me just say this. There's a really good story behind it. It involves a misunderstanding that got way out of control. And when
I think you got called a racist at one point, right?
Yes.
So, I knew you didn't like me.
It is the most ridiculous story ever, but it also is a comedy of errors. Let me say this: it's not one person's fault because there was just a lot of anyway.
Yeah,
I know I'm teasing and I'm not paying off right now, but we need Jorge Masvidal here to really tell the story, so we will get him on.
I'll call Abe again, get Jorge on.
All right,
and once we know we have a confirmed time that he's going to Skype in, or maybe next time he's in town, we'll go ahead and you can go ahead and go through the story. Okay. It is a funny one. I remember when you told me, I was like, actually, like, well, I thought he said this, and then I said that, and then I didn't understand why he was upset until you had to go back and listen to the recording. You're like,
I did.
Oh shit, that's what he thought I said.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's like the old Abbott Costello routine of who's on first.
Yeah,
I mean, when you really hear the story, it'll be something like that. So anyway, hopefully that's got everybody's interest.
Yeah, I remember Abe was like, "What the fuck was up with your guy?" I'm all, "What are you talking about?" And then after talking to you, I was like, and I had to call Abe back. Hey, bro, this is what happened. He's all, shit. All right, hold on, let me explain to Jorge real quick. Jorge was like, I think Jorge was ready to get on a plane and come out here.
Yeah, and the other problem too was it wasn't 1-to-1. There were a whole bunch of other people involved. Like, Abe was involved in translating the message and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, well, we will eventually pay off and tell you that story here on Phone Booth Fighting. A good reason to subscribe, by the way, if this is your first time to listen. Hit that subscribe button in iTunes. Make sure you don't miss out on the eventuality of the Jorge Masvidal reveal. But yeah, so that fight in particular was a bad one for Ellenberger, and I don't know exactly what his plans are, if he's starting to think about wrapping it up or not. I love Jake. I see him, and he's a real friendly guy. He's got his own podcast, by the way, with John Orlando, Tony Orlando's son.
Oh, really?
And in fact, we talked about doing a swap cast with them because they're in Vegas all the time. So maybe at some point we get them up here to the Bent Pixel Studios or something and do it. Yeah. You know what? I want to talk to John Orlando about tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Really, I want to talk to Tony Orlando about it. Maybe he can eventually set that up. Do you know the tune?
Only reason I know is I got to meet Tony Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously the way everybody was treating him, he was somebody of fame.
Oh, yeah.
And
a little before your time.
Yeah, a little bit before my time. And then someone goes, the song, the Tie of the Yellow. I'm like, what the fuck is that song? And then I had to go look it up and go, it became a war song and coming back. And then it's
not a war song. It's a song about pull up Tie a Yellow Ribbon on YouTube. I
thought it was a song about if you still want me.
It is, but it's about a guy getting out of prison.
Oh, shit.
Now
I misunderstood that song completely.
Right.
Then I thought it was a guy going off to war, and then when I come back,
he might have felt like he was in a war over the period of time that he was in. But the reason I want to pull this up,
we're in the musical history session with Richard Hunter.
That's okay. We'll get back to fight talk here in a second.
The very naive Frank Mir.
Yeah, as it goes on Phone Booth Fighting, you never know when a little music talk's going to break out. I pulled an audible called an audible on Mikey here, so he's doing a little producing over there. So. The lyrics to this song are interesting, and I was thinking about them, and I thought, man, I want to ask Tony Orlando about this when we have him on. So let's play a little.
On a side note,
go ahead and pause
am I at least in a group of individuals that confuses this song for people coming back from war, or am I just?
I don't know that I've ever heard that, but it makes sense. I
thought during. Maybe something I was reading, it was big during Desert Storm that people started talking about
I could see it, because now yellow ribbons are associated with that, like support for the troops. So maybe, I get why you would say that. But those, a lot of times people aren't really listening to lyrics super closely. And this is
definitely one of those.
I'm afflicted with this. Like, I can't not. In fact, I'm hyper aware of everything about it. The thing that's interesting about this is we listen to the lyrics. Now this is somebody getting out of prison, all right? So go ahead and play there, Mikey. I don't know if we're going to get a vocal or it's just going to show us the lyrics. If it shows us the lyrics, I'll read them. That's fine. Okay, I'm coming home. I'm coming up on my time. Now I've got to know what is and isn't mine. If you've received my letter telling you I'd soon be free, then you'll know just what to do if you still want me, right? Okay. He's going to tell her what to do here. Still want me. Right here, okay? All right. Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. It's been 3 long years. Do you still want me? If I don't see a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, I'll stay on the bus, forget about us, and put the blame on me. All right? Here in a second, he's going to reference his heart still being in prison, which is, letting you know he's getting out of prison, right? Here's my question, or my point about this song. Go ahead and let it play underneath us here. Boy, this was a better time, wasn't it? When an ex-con who got out of prison is going to have the prison bus just drive by his old lady's house, he's going to see if there's a yellow ribbon on the tree. And if there's not, the bus isn't going to stop. He's going to assume the blame for what happened and just keep going. Nowadays, the convict would show up at his old lady's apartment, kick down the door, violate the restraining order, beat the shit out of her new boyfriend, and blame her. Am I right?
Yep. Absolutely.
It was a better time. Thank you, Mikey. You're welcome. We returned to...
That was a very respectful ex-con.
Yes. We returned to breaking down the UFC Fight Night Lincoln card. We got to give a mention to this. This is on the prelims, but now that we're both Team Syndicate guys, Frank, Joanne JoJo Calderwood is returning to action, taking on Kalindra Faria at the 125-pound weight limit. Faria is, I don't know a lot about her. She's 0-2 in the UFC, but boy, she's had a lot of fight experience. How about an 18-7-1 overall record? That's a lot of fights to have.
Yeah, it is, especially when, really, women's fighting's been around for years now, but they were later to the game than the men's side of the division. And there just wasn't as many women doing it because financially they didn't have the money behind it. So a lot of girls, weren't training full time. It was very archaic until probably, really honestly, I think the big blow up, that really helped it out was, Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate, those battles when they did the Ultimate Fighter, and obviously Ronda, winning an ESPY, with her career, I think blew up the female division where you had more women that started entering. But it got to a point. It's not too far back we have to go that we only started off with one weight class,
right?
Because there just wasn't enough women to have depth behind it. And honestly, it's a problem we still have. Look at our featherweight class with, Cyborg. We're still kind of pulling, at straws here to get her an opponent. It isn't like there's a depth of girls, 5 or 6 deep in the division where it's like, oh, okay, well, we can see in the next 2 years, we'll see how the field plays out, but we have people for her to fight. Like right now, I'm hard pressed to name 4 featherweights.
Right. She's got her next opponent, by the way. More on that in a minute. But yes, to your point, right. Absolutely.
So the fact that she has 26 fights, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. Calderwood has lost her last 2. She's gone 2-2 in her past 4, but she's going into this fight as a favorite. Calderwood lands 6 significant strikes per minute to Faria's 2, so she's a busier fighter by 3 times in that department. That was the number that kind of jumped off at me, and anyway, we've got to throw our syndicate support behind her.
JoJo's looking good. I got to see her in the gym training. I think her stand-up has always been her strong suit. She's definitely somebody who has some good hands and kicks. And she's constantly looking to improve on her jiu-jitsu and working, and she's quick to take advice. She's humble. She shows up and trains hard. She's a grinder. I never really see her complain too much. Half the time, unless she says hi, she doesn't say much in the gym. She just goes in and does her work, And I think there's something about that to be said. Someone who's consistent, and constantly training.
Well, I mentioned a couple of other quick MMA headlines here. I mentioned that Cyborg has her next opponent. This was just announced a little while ago that she will be taking on Amanda Nunes in a champion versus champion fight at UFC 232 coming up December 29th here in Las Vegas, the big year-end card that they always do. Cyborg's featherweight belt will be on the line. So Nunes will move up to 145 pounds. And not only, I think, is this an exciting fight, we've talked in the past about whether or not it was going to get made or should it be made or how much money should Nunes be paid to do it. But you know what I'm thinking, Frank, is this is such a win-win, particularly for Nunes, because, number one, her title's not on the line. Okay, she goes up to 145 pounds, upset Cyborg, awesome. But let's say she doesn't. Which is probably what odds makers are going to say.
She has absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain.
That's what I'm saying. And, you know, for as much as you and I talked about how she never got the opportunity to promote herself in the fight against Ronda Rousey because Ronda did a media blackout, so basically Nunes didn't get any pre-fight shine on her, and she was way less of a known commodity. She still hasn't really got, in my opinion, to the casual fan, her big coming out party.
No.
I think this could do it. Because Cyborg's great with media. You know there'll be plenty of media and fanfare around it. Cyborg, I think, just because of her utter domination, you know, is a more known name to people. And I think Nunes is going to get in this fight from a media perspective what she needed to get from the Rousey fight that she was denied.
Yeah, Rousey's just such so famous and such a star that her not talking still eclipsed everything. And I mean, and on top of that, you know, the UFC didn't do Amanda any favors. Basically, once Rousey said, "I'm not doing this interview," they basically blocked Amanda from stepping out there and doing an interview. It's like, well, it's going to look stupid if the champ or Nunes comes out there and is doing all this. It's only going to bring more attention to the fact that that Ronda had chosen at that point to do a media blackout. For the term that we're using. This is an awesome fight for Amanda Nunes. She has everything to gain. I mean, she loses and she lost to somebody that everybody is highly touted and very much knows is a war machine and destroyer of souls in Chris Cyborg. She's just a big, powerful athlete that's well-rounded. Good stand-up fighter. We've seen her even go beyond just being a physical athlete, seeing her intelligence and her calm when she fought Holly Holm. I actually was very much impressed with her composure to be able to really pick apart the very elusive and difficult style of stand-up to deal with in Holly Holm. And Cyborg didn't just, throw caution to the wind and try to over-envelop her with power. She sat there with a nice jab and beat her up and picked her apart and actually outstruck her on a technical level. I think actually the one advantage I might I think the Amanda Nunes can hang with her striking-wise. Obviously, power's going to go to Cyborg, but Nunes has power too. I think that she has a good advantage, though, because Nunes, I think, is a very efficient black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't know how good of a black belt Cyborg is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know she does jiu-jitsu, and is she a black belt?
I don't know.
I think she's a purple belt last time I caught.
You're talking about Cyborg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's find out exactly.
Yeah.
But as far as jiu-jitsu accolades, I'm quicker to know that Amanda is a more proficient submission fighter on the ground. But the one thing that's going to be interesting in this fight is Amanda should feel good at the beginning of the fight because she's lighter and not going to have to cut weight, right? So she should feel good. Now, Cyborg, still cutting to 145 is always not the easiest cut because she's such a big woman, She easily walks around, from what other people tell me, at 170 pounds, you know what I mean? So she's going to cut down, so she's probably not going to feel as energetic, as good, because as all fighters know, a heavy weight cut does take something out of you. But Amanda Nunes isn't really known. Her cardio at times has been her weak chink. As far as in fights, she's faded because she's so explosive. She has a lot of quick twitch fiber. She's a sprinter of an athlete. Her ability to weather on as the fight goes, she fades. If she fades against girls her own size, she's really going to fade if she gets into, go ahead, Mikey.
She's a brown belt.
She's a brown belt now in jiu-jitsu. Okay. So probably when I did hear it was true at the time. She was a purple belt. Now she's a brown belt. Amanda Nunes is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I mean, at that level, black, brown, but fighting someone who's big and strong and heavy wears you out. I mean, that's one of the reasons too why we have weight classes. Even though a smaller, lighter guy in the gym, if we both jump on treadmills, is going to smash me as far as, well, how long can I run for? He's going to outrun me. We're going to move around. The difference is the minute we start rolling with each other, we start fighting, and I put my hands on him, all of a sudden he gasses out before I do, and it's not because I'm in better shape. It's because he's now having to contend with my size wearing on him, and that just wears out a smaller opponent. And so I'm wondering if they keep this as a pure striking match, even though Amanda Nunes is a very good black belt in jiu-jitsu, I think that will help her out better. I think that still kind of even. Where I think that it could be bad for her is if Cyborg, who's been shown to have some pretty good game plans, if she now becomes a little bit more aggressive with that jab, comes behind it and just clinches Amanda, forces her against the cage and kind of has that first round or two of a grinding Greco, breaking the clinch, Muay Thai, plum clinching, over-unders, and just kind of grinds up Amanda, I think that'll spell disaster for Nunes. I think having to deal and contend with a big, strong athlete like that and not having cardio be aerobic capacity being maybe your strong suit, I can see her fading as the fight goes on. And not because she's not going to train hard. That's just not her genetic strong suit to begin with. And she's facing a monster that is going to fatigue out the best of us.
Well, it's an exciting announcement, and it's a fight we can definitely look forward to. It's been fun talking about it before the fight was made, and it's certainly going to be fun talking about it between now and December 29th. Let's talk about a couple of Bellator headlines
have a speed
here.
Advantage? I think right off the bat, Cyborg or Amanda's quick.
Yeah.
Super quick.
Yeah, I would think so.
Cyborg's quick, but I don't think super quick.
Right. Yeah, I would think there'd be a speed advantage for Nunes. Yeah.
So Nunes needs to be fast, tag her hard, and move out of the way.
Yeah. A couple of Bellator headlines. Frank's got his T-shirt on there of his current employer. Michael Chandler has re-signed with Bellator. I don't know if you knew that he was a free agent or not, but he was. He said he was looking for a big payout and don't know the terms of the deal, but he did re-sign with Bellator, and he re-signed with them before he was even out of the exclusivity of Bellator being able to negotiate with him. So I guess they must have paid him a number he liked, because he didn't even really test the free agency waters. And good for him, because he's one of the guys. For many years, I mean, it's different now in Bellator because they've really upped their game and expanded the promotion. But even when the promotion was far lesser accomplished than it is now, Chandler was always one of those guys in my mind that the UFC would take if he were available, the next day. I mean, like Eddie Alvarez was, and eventually went to the UFC. And now you can say that with a lot more guys over in Bellator. Back then, you couldn't have years back. But Chandler has really been one of the real homegrown faces of Bellator. I like the fact that he's staying over there. I think he's still got big fights ahead of him over there. He's got an important, potential title rematch over there and things like that. So,
well, I think this is the time that fighters are looking for contracts. Bellator is going to pay more. Just look at the dynamics of the battlefield right now.
Yeah.
You have the UFC, who the owners now just paid $4.2 billion to put it together. They want their money back.
Yeah.
And so that's why they eliminated, I think, 20% of the UFC employees, when they first got there within the first 6 months, because they're trying to cut costs. Well, if you're trying to cut costs, you're not necessarily trying to, knock it out of the park with big contracts.
Yeah.
Especially, too, where I've kind of noticed that the attitude that the UFC's started to have, the new helm, is that, we're the UFC, and they're right. A lot of guys, I've talked to guys where I've sat there, I'm like, all right, well, I can get you an ACB, I can get you over Bellator, you're going to get paid X. Well, what about the UFC? I'm like, well, you're going to get paid less. Yeah, but then I can say I'm in the UFC.
There's prestige.
There's prestige
name
to
value,
it. So
sure.
I'm like, well, that's why they'll get away with paying you less, because people would rather go there. Whereas now you're seeing the older athletes, such as myself, Michael Chandler, guys like, Machida, who are sitting there going, hey, being famous is cool and all, but, if you're going to pay me more, I'll go fight for you, at the end of the day, we realize that our careers have a finite ending to it.
Yeah, I think it's also, too, when you already have enough of a name for yourself that you're not counting on the promotion to build your name.
Correct.
And so I could see where, Joe Blow, who, maybe have a lot of tools in his arsenal, but just doesn't have that name, could see where the benefit of being tied to the UFC could still help him. However, back to Bellator, because they're starting to be able to do this with guys in ways that they haven't been in years past. I give you the example of one, Darrion Caldwell, who was in action this past weekend. Now, he is Bellator's bantamweight champion, but he has set his sights, Frank, on being the promotion's first two-division simultaneous champion. He took a non-title fight at 145 pounds. He defeated Noad Lahat via second-round knockout. Looked really impressive doing it. And I like the creative path that this guy is taking toward this, because what he's obviously doing is he's seeing, there's just been a couple of examples of this now over in the UFC, like with Conor and more recently Daniel Cormier, and going, hey, you know what? Even if people don't know my name on the level of those two guys, they recognize the accomplishment. Like if people are hearing, hey, this has only been done a couple of times where you got simultaneous champions, you know what? I'll go be the simultaneous champion. And then all of a sudden people will know me first and foremost for that. Now he's got to accomplish it, but I like that approach, because I think a lot of people, a lot of younger fighters would just be looking at it going, I'm the bantamweight champion. I mean, what else am I going to be worried about other than just defending my title? Well, I think he's already looking past that, realizing what do I need to do to build my name recognition? This is a great way to do it.
I agree with you. I mean, a smart way of going about it, and it's definitely the recipe to get people's attention his way. And going back to what you're saying about attention, I mean, as long as you're on a network that people are seeing, and now with Paramount, and it provides that platform. Pay-per-views, I think, are starting to go the way of the past. I think so many people now are able to hack them. They do the different, what's the word I'm looking for?
The stream.
Yeah, they stream it off of different sites. So I think that, pay-per-views are starting to kind of go the other way, and I think a lot of organizations, UFC's leaning heavily on their Fight Pass. Now Bellator signing with the Zune.
DAZN.
That's
how they pronounce it. Yeah.
DAZN. As long as platforms are in people's hands, that's attention, and that's really an important aspect of it.
Yeah.
That's why, honestly, like towards the end of my career with the UFC, I was very keen. I told you that, like, hey, can I fight on a Fox card? Because I remember when I sat there and I fought Bigfoot Silva, when they came back and told me, like, oh, it was a good Fox card. It was one of our best ever. We had 1.2 million people watching. I'm like going, damn, that's more people that watched me and Brock fight, because people, if they're interested in a fight, handing over $59 compared to just flipping the channel on, you're going to get a lot more people that way. And that might be more immediate cash in my pocket to be on that pay-per-view card. But as far as long-term marketing and branding yourself in the future, the more people that know who you are, the more you can tell off into, I want to open up a gym once I retire, go into coaching, maybe commentary, whatever you want to do. I mean, everybody sees it nowadays. The way the landscape of the future is name recognition, especially because of social media, equals directly over to different benefits that allow you to make money. I mean, even what's her name, the Kardashian girl, she came up with a makeup line, but the reason why it's so popular is she leveraged her fame through the Kardashian family, made it she would go ahead and use Instagram, use her notoriety to bring attention to her brand. And that's what, I mean, think about it. That's what brands do all the time. If Nike wants to, sponsor a guy, it's like, well, why do you think they're giving him money? Because how much money they're going to make off of the attention you're going to bring their products. Well, now all of a sudden you have a name, you have power,
We're going to try to do something right now that it's a maiden voyage we're about to embark on. We're going to turn this segment over to Porno Mikey, who normally is producing behind the scenes. We're going to have him present the news of the day or headlines. And we're going to see how this goes. Now, I've got high hopes for it. He's going to hit us with some headlines, and then, Frank, you and I are going to react to it. A lot of radio shows and podcasts will typically have an attractive female to do this. We decided to go 180 degrees the other direction.
Well, I don't know. I mean, people like what would you be?
He's a bear.
A bear.
That's what he is, boy. Yeah. You two, the two of you guys, this would be interesting, seeing the two of you guys in a bear bar, because, Frank, I mean, some people would say, you want the big athletic guy, but in terms of like amount of hair, because they like a very hairy presentation with the big beard
hairy.
And everything he's got going on. You guys might be fighting over the same leather daddy.
A good amount, yeah.
I have a pathetic amount of chest hair. Like, I mean, I always thought that would look cool. Like, I've never shaved my chest.
Yeah.
So anybody watch me fight, that's a non-shaved chest. Yeah. That's just me, natural hair. I guess the good news is I'm never going to lose the hair on the top of my head.
Yeah.
Because, they always say, hairy chest, hairy back. Usually the guys will go bald.
Yeah.
I ain't going bald anytime. I can't even grow a full beard, dude.
I have the power alleys going. I have to
there you go, yeah.
keep a buzz cut pretty good.
Well, like, you can grow hair here.
Yeah.
Like, every time, I mean, the last time I tried growing a beard out was when I did the exhibition celebrity fight with Ross Miller, the former attorney general for Nevada, and so I didn't shave for like about a month, and so I took a picture, and one of the people commented, and Mrs. Mir had to show me. She's all, "See, will you shave it now?" And I looked at it, and it said, like, "Did Frank go and join the Pirates of the Caribbean or some shit?" Like, what the? It looks like, because I guess it's the Spaniard blood or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get a mustache, and I get this. But this is just
hard to fill in.
Yeah, man.
I think that
if you're into hair, you're not into me, man.
We may have to try this sometime, just purely for journalistic purposes. But I would imagine if we went into the gay leather bar, that maybe at first Frank could turn some heads, but then Mikey would play his ace in the hole and just whip his shirt off, and everybody they'd forget about you.
Really?
It'd be like right over to him. Yeah.
What's funny? My first date with my fiance, we went to dinner, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to come to the line dancing bar with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, my friends are going to
you agree to anything at that the first date, yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, my friends are going to be there, like, you're not, and they're all gay guys. And I'm like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." She's like, "Okay, you're not a big homophobe?" I'm like, "No, whatever." And so I go there, and I sort of like, and I don't know, like, I'm like, "Oh, line dancing bar, whatever." There's the floor. And I go and I see, like, two guys hugging. I'm like, "Oh, those guys must be pretty drunk if they're, like, hanging on each other, hugging." And then...
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Now one's blowing the other one.
And then I'm like, I was talking to Amanda, and I'm just looking around, and I was like, wow, Amanda's like the only girl in here.
Yeah.
And then I turn around and I look, and there's this giant, like, 6 foot by 8 foot flag, and it says NGRA. And I'm like, what's weird? I'm like, no. And I was looking, and then underneath it says Nevada Gay Rodeo Association.
Oh.
And I was like,
yeah.
Oh, this is a gay bar.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's a whole scene too.
Yeah.
They've got like exclusively gay rodeos and stuff like that.
It's really, they're all into that. The line dancing.
Well, what's funny about that? Whenever I have, guys in the gym will be talking, and they'll be, "Oh man, the guy that's the most homophobe in the group." I always kind of laugh, because do you ever notice it's always the guy I look at him and be like, "Buddy, you got nothing to worry about."
Nobody's fucking you. You know how nobody's fucking you now? Nobody's really going to be fucking you if you try to turn gay.
You think women are picky? Yeah. Try those motherfuckers. Like, do you see how hard they work out at the gym? I mean, I look over every time I see the most meticulously manicured guy. Yeah, it's always the gay guy. You know what I mean? Like his eyebrows, his face. They go dressed to the gym better than I go on dates. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, I'm like, dude, come on, your socks aren't even matched, and they want nothing to do with you, buddy.
Well, let's see how this goes. If it's not a total disaster, maybe I'll put a little production value. We'll make a theme for him or something next week. But I didn't want to go to any trouble in case it falls on its face. But let's see what happens here. So here is Porno Mikey with today's headlines. He's going to give us the news, Frank, and then we'll react. You ready to go? All right, take it away, Porno Mikey.
All right, so we'll pick it up with a story that we kind of touched on.
Can we take a break here real quick and we'll edit into
Failing
it?
already?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's 8 o'clock, and I got
Yes.
to make sure Ronan. I told him that if I wasn't there.
Okay.
But
you're picking kids up? You're not done Ubering? Oh my gosh. Okay.
But I think I got rides from them, from the coaches.
Oh, okay.
Cage, I'm not worried about because he has a cell phone.
Yes.
Ronan doesn't have a cell phone, so
Okay.
I don't want everybody to take off, and all of a sudden
Right.
my son's still there. I know I said it to somebody.
Yeah.
I need to hear again.
Okay.
Specifically, you have my kid.
I'll keep talking while you're doing that. You want to do it that way? Okay. Yeah, this is reminding me of a PSA I used to see as a kid. Mikey, I don't know if you've ever seen this one or not, but have you ever seen the PSA where the kid is waiting on his dad and everybody else has been picked up and he hadn't been picked up and he's like, he'll be here soon. I know he'll be here soon. And then they cut to like the dad was all drunk and like forgot about picking the kid up or whatever. And then they show the kid like years later and he's drinking himself or something. And the dad's like, well, where did you learn this from? And he's like, I learned it from you. I learned it from you, Dad.
Did they play the Cats in the Cradle right after that?
Yeah, I don't think they had the clearance to play Cats in the Cradle. I think Harry Chapin wanted a little too much money to give him the tune, but yeah, it had everything else. It was its own after-school special. Did you ever have after-school specials, or are you too young for that?
I think I'm a little too young for that.
Back when I was a kid, there would be these. They were basically dramatic after-school specials.
Yeah.
Can I stop filibustering, or you're still working?
No, I'm just trying to text them.
Oh, keep going.
Practice ends
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock ish,
Yeah.
so they might still be practicing.
Keep going. I got some more material.
That's okay. We could go a little bit now.
Okay.
But I'm going to be paying attention
Yeah,
to
you
my phone.
wait for it to come back in. That's fine. Anyway, I'll tell you about after-school specials another time. Let's get to the news so we don't run out of time. All right, back to your segment here.
All
Mikey.
right. I actually auditioned for a PSA back in the day in
Oh,
LA.
no.
It was like your kid went to bed,
Yeah.
and then they woke up and it was somebody else. Like, drugs make your kid somebody else.
You were going to be the somebody else?
Yeah, I was going to be somebody else. I'm like, well, what's their drug? Like Lou Malnati's pizza? Like, but yeah, so I didn't get it because I saw a couple like real skinny guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, those guys are going to get that.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so we kind of touched on this when Frank was in Australia and Jess and Jesse were in here in studio.
Jessica Rose Clark, UFC flyweight, and my coach for Wimp to Warrior.
Right. So Andrea Lee, her husband, who got some negative attention for his Nazi tattoos.
This is a crazy
yeah.
story, Frank.
Yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah.
So there's been an official police report has been filed against him for basically domestic violence, and I think let me see, I got it on my screen, but there's like false imprisonment and something else in there. There's just a police report, nothing from her yet. The only statement is from, I guess they got a roommate who's also a fighter who like, trains with her, who's like her best friend. Pretty crazy. Basically, they were watching the fights, and then things.
By the way, the fights they were watching, Frank, apparently what the initial argument was over whether or not Mighty Mouse got robbed in his split decision loss to Henry Cejudo. So, I mean, you and I.
mad about that.
Yeah, well, apparently not as mad as this scene. Go ahead, Mikey.
Yeah, so apparently they start yelling. Andrea Lee, her husband and her husband's dad are there, and this roommate, and they start yelling, fighting. The roommate comes in to see what's going on. Andrea Lee runs to her daughter's room, and the husband is trying to burn a cigarette on her arm. And so the roommate comes in, and the husband's dad, who's like 80 years old or something like that, breaks it up. And this is like 11 o'clock at night. And then the guy's woken back up at 4:30, more yelling.
The roommate.
Closing. The roommate is woken back up, more yelling and screaming and everything. And at that point, he finally called the cops, and the report was filed. Basically, this has been going on their entire relationship over 3 years. The roommate just finally is now seeing it, her friend, and yeah, it's been going on. And apparently, a thing that ties back to what we were talking about, people in the UFC and other people have offered this guy free cover-ups for his Nazi tattoo, and he turned it down. And there's also, I guess has a giant one on his shoulder, another swastika too.
You know it's bad when somebody draws attention to your Nazi swastika tattoo and you have to say which one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he took off, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if they found him yet or not.
I don't think so. Nothing. It's pretty vague. She hasn't come out with anything. all that we have is the police report, which just says false imprisonment, domestic abuse, battery are the 2 charges that have been filed against him, and then this guy's statement, the roommate's statement.
I read this entire statement, by the way, Frank, and it's lengthy. I mean, we don't even have time to read the whole thing. It's online if anybody wants to see it. But another really bizarre thing about the statement was the roommate said that at one point during the night, one of the bizarre things he walked in on was that he walks in on her pulling up her pants, and he's trying to take pictures of her with her pants down so that she can text these pictures to some guy so that he can then claim that she was cheating on him. Like he's trying to fabricate some kind of evidence of her infidelity, I guess in his neo-Nazi brain, thinking that that's going to play well with a jury or a cop that shows up, that, hey, look, I had to be trying to beat her up because she's sending naked pictures to some guy. I mean,
the guy seems...
I don't think this guy's very... I don't think these people are very smart.
No.
I mean, yeah. And that goes back... You like that? You think I'm going out on a limb there?
You're like, this guy doesn't strike me as the sharpest, knife in the drawer,
Well, and this goes back to the way they handle the whole Nazi tattoo Instagram controversy, because, she was initially out of the gate saying, oh, get over yourselves, people. I think she called everyone sensitive-ass mofos or something for raising concern. I mean, at every turn, it's just, you look at people like that, and you're just like, wow, we're okay, good.
My son is taken care of.
All right, excellent. But, I think we were talking about that, Frank, when you got back with the fallout of that story, just in general of, look, okay, everybody's job isn't to be the smartest person in the room, but make sure, it's like having a designated driver. I mean, let's at least just make sure somebody is the voice of reason to go, this is a bad idea, that's a bad idea. I mean, I don't know what kind of den of iniquity they got going down there at Louisiana, wherever this is, but it sounds like there's just a house full of chaos down there.
Yeah.
Well, just
the parents involved in this.
Yeah, just the amount of people living in the
and
house.
There's a kid. They got a kid,
their
too.
Daughter, yeah.
Yeah, there's kid involved.
That always weirds me out. Like, just the amount of people in the house. If you're a married couple, it seems weird.
Yes.
And Amanda and I went through that. Her dad lived with us. He listens to the show. Hi, Jeff. For a little bit. But it's just, if you have like the dad, the mom, the grandma, the neighbor, the roommate, it's just weird for a married couple to have a roommate, I feel like. And it's just not a good sign if you got
the roommate, definitely.
Well, especially with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you're to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there where I've helped friends out in between places, but I don't think one's ever stayed at my house more than the 30 days of, one house sold or apartment, and then they're moving into another, and they didn't want to pay the overlapping, which I get that, I don't want to pay rent at one place and have to pay the rent at the new place or the mortgage on a new place before I move out. And, so I've been there on a couple occasions.
And by the way, we weren't, I don't think initially with the tattoo controversy, we were sure why the guy went to prison. I think he's killed somebody.
Oh, yeah. He had, let me go back in there. Yeah, it was negligent death with a firearm, and he did 9 years, I think. Let me go back. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a...
That's kind of weird. Like, if it's negligent, like just basically you're using a firearm and you used it improperly, but not the intent to kill somebody.
It's not murder.
It was
right?
It was in 2009 when it happened. That's where I got the 9 from.
Okay.
So in 2009, the husband was found guilty and convicted of negligent homicide with a firearm and spent time behind bars.
Yeah. I can't imagine that being a lot of time, because that's basically would be like a Cheney situation.
Oh, right.
Except for the guy dies. You know?
Yeah.
Because of your negligence with the firearm, someone dies. Well, you're still held responsible, but obviously you never intended to kill somebody. They can show that it was just you being a dumbass.
So the guy was practicing his quick draw.
I'll still go ahead and call it a red flag. All right, let's what's next, Mikey?
All right, this one I think Richard's gonna like. We got Paul Manafort trial verdict came in.
Oh yeah.
So here we go. Trump's campaign chairman was up for 18 felony accounts. And to put it in MMA terms, he is 0-8, and I guess 10 no contests because he
right.
So he
the jury was hung on 10 of the 18
jury was
counts.
hung for 10 of the 18 accounts, found guilty on 8 counts, 5 of tax fraud, 2 of bank fraud, 1 count failure to disclose a bank account. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. Most of it was, I think a lot of it was the Stormy Daniels thing. And he specifically said that Trump...
Actually, no. You're conflating Cohen
that's the lawyer.
and Manafort.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But we'll get to that in a second. But first on
Manafort's
Manafort.
the funds guy, right?
Manafort's the...
he was over in Russia doing all the different stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't claim the money that he got.
And his stuff goes back longer than some of it goes back longer than a decade. But he definitely, was. And the thing about these federal cases is, politics aside, this is number stuff. I mean, the IRS shows up and they usually have the goods on you. You either paid your taxes, you didn't. You either were straight with your bank about getting a loan, or you weren't. And that's where I think the heaviest stuff that hit him was the bank fraud, because what he was doing was he was going in and fabricating assets to get loans from a bank that weren't really there. He was actually in money trouble, and he's going in fabricating documents that say he's got more money than he does. That's very bad if you do that. But the thing about him, and I don't know if you remember this, Frank, because it goes back a couple of years. It actually goes back to Trump's inauguration. But and I'm going to pull the clip for when I hit the trifecta, and I'm completely right about this to play. But I said way back when, it was actually around the time of Michael.
Why he wouldn't release his...
the tax returns, yes. But what I was going to say is that with Flynn, I said, between Flynn and... between Flynn and Manafort, I said, and I didn't... And now I'll add Roger Stone to that list. I wasn't really thinking about him at the time, but I said, some of these guys may be going to prison. Well, I'm right on Manafort, and Flynn's already pled guilty. And the thing that happened... And Flynn's
working with federal.
Yeah,
he's taking
he's taking a deal. Yeah, exactly. We have conservative listeners to this podcast that agree with me on this point. I'll name check. Dave Ellis is one guy that I talk to sometimes on Twitter. He's a conservative guy, but he and I agree on this that keep in mind, nobody was giving Trump a chance to win. Right? I mean, up until he got the nomination, it was just thought of like this, just even within the Republican Party. So nobody of the Republican establishment was jumping on board with him. They were all supporting other candidates, which means that pickings were slim in terms of the people who would support Trump. So what he ended up getting were these political outliers, these people like Paul Manafort, like Roger Stone, who may have had decades and decades ago legitimate associations with the Nixon administration or the Reagan administration, but since then they had become lobbyists for like really bad people, like really bad third world dictators. So they were kind of shunned. They were just kind of on the outskirts. And then you also had somebody like Michael Flynn, who had a very decorated military background, but had then since gone off the deep end with the Alex Jones InfoWars conspiracy theory kind of stuff. So that was all the people that you could get. And they were with Trump when Trump needed people. He needed, great, Flynn's a general, cool, get him with me. I want that look. Oh, Manafort's got this resume of these people he's worked with. Great, that's my campaign chairman. But the problem is Trump wins against all odds, and now these people who were these persona non grata political outliers, guess what? Now they're in the West Wing. Now, Steve Bannon, now they're all in there with him, and so all their baggage comes with them as well. I mean, to draw an MMA analogy, we know people like that are still kind of on the fringe of MMA, but they're coaches that maybe they screwed somebody over, they've got a checkered criminal past or whatever, but they were around enough that people know their names, but at the same time, you don't want to pin your career hopes on somebody like that. But if nobody gives you a shot of being any kind of MMA fight, if that's the only coach that's going to give you any attention, maybe you do partner up with him and maybe you make it to the big show, but all of a sudden, guess what? This is bad because next thing you know, you got neo-Nazi tattoo guy coaching you.
People start digging the skeletons out of the closet.
Right, or whatever it is. So really, I mean, apolitically looking at this stuff, this is bad, and that's where it came from. And that's why we're here now. Now, the other part of that, I assume you were going with, was Michael Cohen, which was happening at exactly the same time.
Right.
On a side note, do you think it's a good thing in a way for Trump? This is what I thought about when I was reading earlier. The fact that he doesn't want to disclose his income taxes probably means that he put everything on paper, that he's smarter than that than to try to have things hidden. Wouldn't that mean, like, let's say that he did hide things as far as income coming from,
Are we talking about Trump now?
Yeah, Trump. Okay. He probably would have been less against sharing his tax returns because he hid all those things. If he was able to hide it, he's like, well, you can look at it. I've already shuffled this around, the Russian money or wherever that we're supposing might end up being there. I didn't leave any traces to me. Maybe he went ahead and put it there, and so there are traces there, and that's why he never wanted to release it. But then, even though it looks bad, it's not illegal.
Yeah, probably so.
I mean, he could take money from anybody as long as you claim it. Well, yeah, these guys gave me money, and there it is.
I get you. Yes, I have always believed that the problem with those tax returns is that there's a lot of Russian money in them.
Right.
And
the problem is with Manafort is he lied about where he denied the money, the paper trail, and hid things, didn't disclose, bank accounts. But
back to the Trump tax returns, and of course it's all speculation because we can't see them. If there is Russian money in there, albeit legitimate, I mean, you worked for a Russian promotion. Yeah. I mean, that money's going to be there. It's not that in and of itself that's illegal. However, if there is anything to we'll find all this out as it plays out. Yeah, any kind of, whether it's collusion or even just obstruction of justice, it could be that. That coupled with the money coming in is a bad look. And maybe when you're running for president, again, I'm going to speculate for a second, but maybe when you're running for president, and especially maybe when you realize, holy shit, I think I'm about to get this nomination, maybe you look at things and go, I can see how somebody's going to take A and look at B and put the two and two together and go, yeah, I don't want this out there. Just like, and this will lead us into our next story, just like he doesn't want the porn star payoffs out there. Is that illegal? I mean, in and of itself, no. Now it will be if he's found to have violated campaign finance laws. But just in terms of if all you're doing is paying off a porn star not to tell the world that you fucked them, at that point maybe you're just doing it so your wife doesn't know. But if you do that and then this comes out anyway, now all of a sudden you're really kind of in a ringer because it looks like you were doing it on the eve of an election to keep damaging information from coming out. Now that gets us to Michael Cohen. Right?
And is that illegal?
Yes. That's a camp. Now here will be the debate. The debate will be, is it a violation of campaign finance law? And the example.
So if he used his personal money, he's fine though, right? He didn't break any laws.
Not necessarily.
He's still breaking laws. See, that's what I understand. You can't pay someone to keep their mouth shut. I mean,
okay, so here it is. If you paid for it out of your campaign and you didn't declare it, that's a very black and white issue.
Right, because campaign spending has to be very
everything's
transparent.
Got to be reported.
Okay.
If you paid for it yourself, if you can plausibly assert that was not meant to be a campaign contribution, then you're okay. But if what you're doing was really when it's looked at legally, if it's determined that what you were doing was essentially making an in-kind contribution to your campaign to pay someone off, then that could be considered a campaign contribution. So, for example, like if...
It seems like it'd be easier to work this out. If I was Trump, be like, look, Stormy Daniels going to come out and tell everybody I banged her. Fuck the election. I have a wife. I paid her to fucking keep her mouth shut. Okay.
Yeah, and then you're clear. But that's also because you're owning up to it. Now the other thing is too, and that I think at that point blows a case. I don't think you would have any case to be made.
I could be Trump again. I'm going to go ahead and because it looked bad in the situation and the things she's going to say, is going to make my wife upset at me, and I don't want to divorce her. So I went ahead and told her to keep her mouth shut. It was cheaper, and people do that all the time. They settle out of court. You know, someone comes up with allegations. You're like, look, I don't want to get strung through the Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, some people still hang on that well, he wasn't proven guilty in court. Well, I'm like, he settled outside of court. And I do realize that there are innocent people that settle out of court because they sit there and go, look, I have the money. Here's 50 grand. I don't want to deal with the shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it looks bad enough that I don't want to deal with it, even though I know I'm innocent. I didn't do it. I don't want to put my family through these proceedings. 50 grand to me is nothing. Boom, there you go. Or, you know, 130,000 to Trump. He's like, it's pocket change. I've lost that on a fucking golf course.
Or a casino. And all that is fine until you're running for office and you're subject to campaign finance laws. And I would actually...
so again, the only stipulation is that he didn't use campaign money, right?
So here's the best kind of recent example. Look at this. John Edwards.
Okay.
So remember John Edwards...
Didn't he pay for the abortion or something? Or?
No, they had the kid. She had a kid. Yeah, but he basically
and he hired the husband, didn't he?
No. You're thinking that was a Nevada controversy with the governor, the former governor. So here's what happened with John Edwards.
I'm messing up my scumbags.
Hey, trust me, there's a lot of them to keep track of in politics. So John Edwards was running in the 2008 primary with Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, right? Basically, they're the three top candidates for the Democratic nomination. Edwards is having an affair with somebody that he's got on his campaign payroll. She has their kid out of wedlock. He's going to try to cover all this up. What he does is he goes to a wealthy campaign donor, this rich old lady that was known to give a lot of money to his campaign. And they say to the woman, hey, we need money to, and I think they didn't say to keep her quiet. It was like, we need to hire her as a videographer, you know, for the campaign. And of course, this is all just a way to funnel money, right? So they get it. So it's not him. It's not John Edwards putting money into it. Okay. You know, it'd be kind of like, no, it's not. It's not Frank Mir doing it. It's Phone Booth Fighting doing it. You know, you're basically trying to be one layer removed from it.
Now, did Trump use campaign money?
We don't know. So here's.
But I mean, I'm thinking the guy is so fucking rich and has money from so many different areas. I mean, and not that I'm fucking bagging on Melania. But I'm pretty sure she doesn't know all the fucking workings of his financial side. One of his companies could have just fucking wrote the check, and it's not like she's going to sit there and come out, you know, and go, hey, I just checked the bank account, honey.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is Stormy, and why'd you give her 130 grand? Yeah. You know what I mean?
But that if he did that, that's going to be a problem, and here's why. Because
why is that a problem?
I'll tell you. Because if you set up a shell corporate, see, they're thinking of all this stuff. So it's kind of like with the whole idea of campaign finance, and believe me, across the board, I think it needs to be way tougher than it is. And I'm talking anybody that runs for office. I think campaign finance reform is something that's desperately needed, and I think both sides of the political aisle fight it because there's so many people that are dirty and learn to manipulate the system. But the idea behind it is that they know it's a cat and mouse game, and they're trying to stay one step ahead of you. So if you go, oh, no, that, this corporation paid money out, but it was set up as a shell corporation, and apparently the only thing the shell corporation has ever done is pay off the porn star, which we know is what happened here. Right. That's a problem because they're looking at it because they're looking at it going, I see what you were doing. Like you set up a shell corporation, you were trying to hide its intent.
But he could say I was trying to hide it from my wife.
Yes, but what they're going to say is that would be fine if you weren't running for president. But because you were running for president, we see a motivation here to try to keep this information from the general public.
But why would the general public need to know whether you cheat on your wife or
not? Because they could look at it, and this is not black and white. I'm saying
this is like whether you're gay or not. I could give a shit less.
But some people,
what I mean? Like that's your personal life.
Yes, but
what God you pray to, who you sleep with at night, I think is your own fucking private business.
But some people don't see it that way. But
is that a law or is it just ethics?
Or is it
just like people feel like they're privy to that knowledge.
It's an interpretation of the law.
Interpretation.
Okay, so let me give you an example on the other side. Okay, if we had never found, let's say we'd never found out about Monica Lewinsky, right? Let's say that, or we didn't find out about her until after Bill Clinton was reelected. Let's say that what happened was he paid her off, right? Just paid off a big chunk of money. And it was about to come out right before the reelection. He pays her a big chunk of money. We never hear about it, and then he gets reelected, and then somehow at some point we hear about it. You could definitely make an argument that that was a violation of campaign finance law. Now, he could be sitting there going, no, this was just, I just didn't want my wife to know. And they could go, yeah, that's true for any dude on the street, but you had a whole nother motivation. We don't care about that part, but you had a whole nother motivation, because if that information had come out, realistically speaking, a segment of the voting population might have decided to vote against you because of that. And it's not always going to be a sexual thing. The reason they have this law is because one candidate might have a sexual thing, but the other thing might be a business thing that they want to cover up.
If you use money to hide anything that could be negative towards your campaign, that falls under the campaign.
That's right. Yes, campaign finance law. Because imagine like I'm actually really underwater.
So whether you use your money or not from the campaign, if you use your own personal dollar, but you use it with that intent.
Think of it like this.
Well, I mean,
but
people hide shit all the time.
But that's okay. But here's and listen, this gets back to my case about this whole idea of how great of an idea it is with somebody with no political experience to run for office. This is exactly how they get fucked, because somebody who's had the experience of running for state legislature, or all the way up to a congressman or something like that, they would know better than this stuff. Okay, I firmly believe that if this actually all ends up blowing up on Trump, he's going to be sitting there going, what do you mean I couldn't do this? Or what do you mean I couldn't do that? That's how we did it at Trump Tower. We did that for decades. What do you mean you can't? And the answer is always going to be, Mr. President, yes, but that was before you ran for public office. So just let me give you an example. Let's imagine
$130,000 to fucking Trump. Why didn't he just give her fucking cash?
Well, he talked about that actually on the Michael Cohen tape, and Cohen said the tape that Cohen leaked, and Cohen said, well, no, we need to check because we need paper trail of it.
Why do we need a fucking paper trail?
Well, see,
why would we want a fucking paper trail if I'm doing something that's illegal?
This is the problem, is that you've got two people trying to figure out how to do something that we don't want out there. That's the original sin, is getting involved in all this, and there not being somebody in the room to go, hey guys, we're about to violate a campaign finance law. Everybody stop and let's do this the right way. I want to get this example out though, because we put a lot of focus on like infidelity. Here's another way that it would work and why this law exists. Imagine that I'm running for office, but I'm underwater with my business, right? Like I'm running as Joe Businessman, but if you really saw my books, you'd be like, this guy he's totally run his business into the ground. So I do a little financial finagling. When I get caught and I get accused of violating a campaign finance law, I say, oh no, the only reason I was doing that is because my wife thinks I'm a really good businessman and I didn't want her to find out that I'd actually put us in financial peril. See what I mean? You could make that same argument like, oh, no, I just didn't want to cause trouble in my marriage. Again, if you're Joe Blow, they're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. But seeing as how you're the Republican nominee for president, we're looking at it differently because you've got a whole other motivation there. Did we even explain what happened with Michael Cohen?
Well, there's not a whole lot. He pled guilty to charges including campaign finance fraud stemming from hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels. So we basically went over it during the whole.
Here's the key about that one.
As part of his plea agreement, he cannot challenge the sentence for 46 to 63 months.
Here's the key about that one. When he went to court and pled guilty, which is probably going to be 3 years, 5 years, something like that, prison. When he pled guilty, he said in front of the judge under oath that he violated campaign finance laws and that he did it at the direction and with the cooperation of a candidate for federal office, and that's Donald Trump that he's talking about. So this is the first time that the president has been implicated in the commission of a crime, because Cohen basically said under oath, he did it. I did it in conjunction with him, and at his direction. So he was
Name
a
him,
conspirator. Yeah, and Trump now,
I meant to ask you because when I was in the court earlier today, I meant to ask Dan. He's an attorney. I'm like, hey, what'd you think about Giuliani's "the truth is not the truth"?
Yeah, that's bad.
That was almost the most moronic statement of an intelligent man. I mean, Giuliani's a smart guy. I mean, I don't think that's going out on a limb there to say the guy is a pretty bright individual. That was like, I'm like, what
I think is happening with Giuliani now, because yes, I mean he's not a dummy, but he's not really being retained to be Donald Trump's lawyer. I mean the guys like Emmett Flood that are Trump's real lawyers behind the scenes, those are the lawyers doing the lawyering. Giuliani is a guy with a lawyer's license who's really been employed to go be the PR guy, because he's going on television on the outlets that Trump won't and make these arguments. But the problem is, as this stuff moves and shifts, I mean, the first thing you need to do with your lawyer is be honest with them. I mean, you did it. Tell them you did it. Tell them whatever they need to know to defend you. The thought process behind what's happening right now with Trump is that when he had his original legal team, he told them, look, I'm not hiding anything. There's nothing to hide. I want to get this thing over with as quick as possible. So John Dowd and Ty Cobb, who were his original attorneys, said, oh, well, you know what? We'll just cooperate with the Mueller investigation, because our client just told us there's nothing to this. So the easiest, and he wants it over with as soon as possible. So the easiest way to get it over with is to just be full on cooperating with them. Well, they were full on cooperating with him, and now the concern is, wait a second, maybe he wasn't completely straight about this. I mean, it still remains to be seen whether he committed any crime, but he may not have been completely forthcoming with his attorneys saying, look, there's this, there's that, it could look really bad, there's these payouts, there's maybe some Russian money, whatever it is, remains to be seen. But definitely a new chapter in that with the Cohen plea, that was the first time Trump was mentioned. All right, what else we got here, Mikey? A few more minutes.
Yeah, well, we will go to, we'll keep it on theme, payoffs. Where is it at? Here we go. One of the very first Weinstein ladies who came out.
Harvey Weinstein accusers, yes.
One of the leaders of the Me Too movement just paid off a young man who claims she had an affair with him when he was 17, she was 37.
Did you hear about this? Now, this is her Asia Argentino.
Yeah.
Is that her name?
Asia Argentino.
She was the girlfriend of Anthony Bourdain.
Okay.
And then, right up until the time that he committed suicide. Here's a picture of her. Yeah. She has accused Harvey Weinstein of sexually assaulting her. Well, now I guess she is denying. She's not denying the payoff. But she's denying that any affair ever actually took place with this kid. What she's saying is that the kid started wanting money, and Bourdain, before he committed suicide, personally facilitated the payout of, what was it, $380,000 to basically get him quiet. Now, there's conflicting evidence to that, some text messages, things like that. But obviously tough for the Me Too movement. Not that if that's what happened with Harvey Weinstein, that's its own separate crime and shouldn't diminish that. But especially if she's knowingly engaging in this payout at the same time that the accusations are being made, it's bad timing.
Yeah, and apparently they kind of had like a mother-son type relationship, because there they are. He played her son in a movie in 2004. And then they have a pretty, like a long social media history, which kind of makes it a little weirder, because it's Waiting for My Son. And then there's other stuff,
Right. And then I guess there's a photo of them that is probably they're in bed together.
Yeah.
Doesn't show like it's like a... It's presumed to be kind of a post-sex selfie.
Yeah, I think they got taken down.
Right.
Because they read the kid's social media kind of wiped almost all of his... He deleted almost all of his posts and everything.
Well, one should not detract from, and this is my opinion, one should not detract from the other. I mean, this doesn't give Harvey Weinstein a break by any means. But at the same time, I would say that if you're going to be a voice for, especially when there's more than just her involved, there's an entire movement on the line, you would at least want to think about being candid about something like this, even if you deny any wrongdoing, just to be completely transparent that it's out there, because obviously if somebody finds something like this and they have any reason to want to defend Harvey Weinstein or another accuser. Yeah.
What's her name again?
Asia.
Go. Can I just see how it's
Asia Argento. Argento.
Okay.
Asia Argento.
Oh, Argento.
Yeah.
And the terms of the non-disclosure are weird. He can still say what happened, but he just cannot ever sue her again for any more money. And there's like social media stigmas in there. Could tell people claims against you. Cannot sue, nor can he post a photo of the two of you. So it's in the NDA that he cannot post any pictures of the two of them.
Okay.
So that's kind of weird that he can still. I've never heard of like a post. Social media thing in an NDA.
Yeah, it's kind of a new thing, right?
Could be
that's
a
interesting.
Groundbreaking payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the remember that old racist owner of the was it the Clippers? Donald Sterling.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? He had the 3 decades younger than him Asian girlfriend, and he was mad because she was going around and banging all the black dudes.
Yeah.
But what he didn't want was he wasn't mad she was doing it. He just didn't want her to post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
He was very fixated on that Instagram thing. All right. How about one more? You want to do one more?
One more. Yeah, I want to do this one. I did.
Yep.
Last season on Tough, Bryce Mitchell.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think he won his fight on the Ultimate Fighter card.
Wait, was this Ultimate Fighter or was it Tuesday Night Contender Series?
I think it was Ultimate Fighter because I remember this guy. He was a hillbilly guy, and he like made a bow, like a bow and arrow out of just stuff he found in the backyard of.
Oh Jesus! I read ahead.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, I know.
I'll go ahead and read it.
Me too. Go ahead.
Shit.
While Frank and I pass out here, you take the helm, Mikey. This is your segment.
Yeah, here
take
we
the
go.
wheel.
So I was going to train today, but I ripped my nutsack in half. I'm about to get stitched up. I was holding the board over my head with a drill in my pants. I was sizing up the board, and drill went off and tangled my nuts up in it. I dropped the board and reversed the drill and untangled my nutsack, but they was ripped in half. I'm serious too, LOL. I obviously can't post the pic, but when my nuts are sealed back up, I'm going to come and train again. I think a high kick would rip them, haha. And if I hear any shitty puns about how this whole thing is nutty or screwed up, I ain't talking to you for about a month. If you're going to drop a pun to make fun of me, at least put some thought into it. So,
all right.
First of all, they sell little clips that you put on your drill.
Yeah.
And you can clip it to your belt. They're about $3. So I'm sure he'll get a bunch of those.
Worthwhile investment.
A bunch of those
Maybe
in the
get an
mail.
endorsement at this point.
DeWalt
Drill
sponsor
clips
him.
are probably going to be on his next fight banner.
Or holster.
My first thought is hell of an excuse. I'm going to save this one for the next time that I sleep through my alarm, don't show up at train. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about Jessica Rose Clark. I missed. We train every morning at 7 a.m. at Syndicate. I missed a training session. I had a text from her at 7:10 a.m. Where are you? Where are you at?
Really?
What that text said. Yeah. So she's on top of it, and hopefully she hadn't heard about this story, because if I miss another one, I'm going to save this. Well, I drilled my nutsack in half. Be my response.
But pretty calm under pressure to reverse the drill, to drop the board, and then while it's tangled in your nutsack, reverse the drill and back it out. I don't know if I would. A lot of people would panic and just try to yank on it, or just freeze and maybe call some. Yeah,
We're just passed the fuck out.
Yeah.
Boy, I may pass the fuck out right now just talking about this. What an awful. You know what? Maybe it's just my overly cautious nature, but I don't allow a power tool.
Those drawers?
Yeah, that's his drawers at the hospital.
I don't allow a power tool anywhere around my nether regions, even when they're unplugged.
Yeah.
What they say, like, I even shave up.
Yeah.
No blades going that way, man. Well, I carry my Glock appendix carry, right?
Yeah, that freaks me out.
Well, I don't carry one in the chamber. I practice and train like the old Israeli way of when I pull my firearm and in my presentation, I charge it there. So then I rack it and then go on site or charge it. I mean, it only adds about 0.3, 0.4. And I know that if we were in a race and that came down to whether I live or die, it does add, a half a second to the time I can get on target and fire. But I just kind of waited out in life. The chances of me being a gunfight where half a second is going to be the difference between life and death, and the chances of me just accidentally, and I know everybody that carries a Glock tells me like, well, no, look, you have to pull the trigger. It's safe. This, I hear it, man. I hear how safe it is, and I believe that it's safe.
Yeah.
It's still pointing towards my.
Let me see all those people who are giving you all that good advice show up at your bedside after you blow your dick off.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just like,
I'll bet you
and
wouldn't
that's
hear
what
a
I'm more
word
afraid
from
of than
them.
anything. I mean, look, the balls are one thing, you know what I mean? Get them fixed. I'm done having kids. I'm not worried too much. You know what I mean? Like, put a couple rubber ones in there, make for a cool story afterwards. But something happens to your penis.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be alive.
Oh,
I mean, like,
almighty.
Really? I mean, like, what's there the point for? You know what I mean?
All right. Well, I would call this a successful maiden voyage. I think Mikey did a great job.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Navigating.
This is a definite stay now.
I think so. Porno Mikey's headlines are here to stay, and we even challenged it because we totally digressed. We crossed him up. We were trying to talk.
Oh yeah, we didn't make it easy for you.
We were reading ahead at one point, and awesome job. You feel good about that, Mike?
I liked it. It was cool.
All right. I think we need a sponsor for this segment.
I think we need to set up our 2 shots thing going now.
Or what?
Our multiple camera angles.
Oh yeah, that's right. So Mikey can get some camera time for all the bears out
bear
there.
Lovers, nature lovers.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start looking for a sponsor. Maybe is Naughty America in the market to sponsor Porno Mikey's headlines?
I lost my job to them, so they couldn't even.
Or who else? What about Jurassic Cock?
Maybe
would they
hit up the guys from Porn Pros or someone? Yeah.
There we go.
Well, didn't they just sponsor? What's his name? Didn't fucking like. What's the rapper's name that Kanye West?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
You get a porn sponsor?
I think he did. Like somebody, because I have to probably pay more attention. But Mrs. Mir was talking to me about. As soon as I hear Kardashian, man, I zone out.
Right.
I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Was it Pornhub?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he got some kind of sponsor because free lifetime premium membership to Pornhub after gushing over. Yeah.
So he's excited about a site that don't they pirate clips, Mikey?
That's the majority of their income is pirated stuff. But they've grown to the point where they have their own original stuff, and then people will post on there. They'll upload directly to Pornhub, like their homemade stuff.
I see.
And then you get a certain amount of money. It's like an affiliate program.
And a lot of the paid
like a
sites
YouTube channel,
will
like the way we get paid per clip.
Like Naughty America will put their clips on there. They're just not full clips.
Right.
So that way it's like you can watch it, get a taste of it.
Oh, is that
you
right?
like it, you go watch the full. It always says at the end, you missed the best parts.
Yeah.
I'm more of an expert on
I'm just impressed you watch it to the end.
I'm into plots.
You like the credits.
Oh, I'm into plots.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I told you, that guy rewinds. I'm like, how do we get to this point?
Wait a second. I detect an inconsistency.
I'm like, I got to know how she ended up sucking. Where do we get to this?
Well, I just find it ironic that a guy who is in the music business now has a sponsorship with a pirated online platform.
Yeah.
Because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they don't talk,
I don't think he asked for
about
it.
it much, but that's basically how they got big it was pirated, and then now they do have their own original stuff, and they are actually paying some. Like they have a booth at AVN, and they pay girls to be there and everything. It's kind of weird, but I guess I don't know. I guess
all right. So I'm thinking ahead.
He got brought up too. The reason why this got brought up, it actually was. I mean, this is the guy. I think he just came out with a song. I haven't heard it yet. But I guess the song just made headlines because, again, they're marketing geniuses, man, over there. Where he talks about banging his 3 sister-in-laws, or does he have 4? Is it 4 sister-in-laws or 3? I don't fucking know.
I think there's 4.
Is there 4? Is there 5 Kardashians?
I believe there to be 5. Yes. Let me see if I can name them.
I can't fucking count them.
Does your significant other watch Kardashians? Or no?
No.
Okay,
but let me tell you something. We don't do Kardashians, but boy, we double up on Housewives.
Yeah, that's
God Almighty.
Too. And I told you we do Housewives and Little Women.
Yeah.
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 I don't. Mine doesn't watch the Housewives or Little Women, but I'm very up to date on the Kardashians. I'm actually surprised I can't fucking name
Kim.
them. Kim.
Chloe. That's the one that was married to Lamar Odom. The younger
Courtney.
ones are Kendall,
Courtney's
and Kylie.
Yeah.
Courtney.
And then
Courtney. Yeah.
So there's 5.
5 of them,
Yeah.
but so 4 sister-in-laws because one
That's
of them's
right.
Kim,
Yeah.
the wife.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
What are the 2 girls that are Jenner's daughters named again?
That's Kylie,
Kylie
and Kendall.
Kendall. Which the one that actually was good looking?
Oh, I don't know. I tell you what, I saw both of those. Story for another time, but I went to a wedding.
You told me this.
Yes,
but
that
see,
they
I've
were
seen
at.
pictures of the richer one.
Yeah, see, I don't know who did better.
The one that
than
just
who.
had the baby, right?
I don't know.
I seen pictures of her back before,
Yeah.
and she's not very pretty. Now she is pretty.
I
She's
will
had the
tell
plastic
you-
surgery. She's a good-looking girl now. But I've seen people like do the before and after, like what she used to look like, and it's one of those things where I'm like, that's pretty fucked up because if you bred with her, you're thinking you're getting the girl on the right. But actually, your kids are going to turn out looking like the girl on the left.
Yeah.
Look, she has no lips whatsoever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you, those don't even look like the same human being.
Yeah. But I'll tell you something though about them that I mean, this wedding that they were at, it was probably like on the left, like when she was about that age. I don't know, they're maybe a year or two apart or something. But we were in Mexico for a week at this thing lasted a week. And it was the wedding for the guy that created Girls Gone Wild, Joe Francis, and we're all staying at his house in Mexico, which is a 54,000 square foot house, by the way. So they're there, and they were like mini adults. I mean, they were probably 14 or something like that, but they're so like adult-like and tall and all that, and they were like the only kids. I mean, everybody else was adults, so you don't realize that they're kids at first. And there was a bunch of like really age-inappropriate relationships at this wedding. There was like a lot of agent types who were there with their 18-year-old runway models or whatever. So I remember seeing these two, and this was before they were, I guess, on the show a lot or something, and we're like, who are the models over there? You know, and then you're like, oh, wait, what? They're 14. That's creepy. But you know what I'm saying? You ever see they're like kid actors where they sound like mini adults. Like it's really, really strange. The other weird thing about that wedding too is the guy that I spent the most amount of time with was Bruce Jenner. And I, at one point, we were getting spa treatments together. Because the Kardashians' wedding gift was they flew I guess they had a spa in L.A., and they flew their entire spa staff down to this house in Mexico, and they had these tents set up on the lawn, and you could get, as a guest of the wedding, you could get any spa treatment you wanted at any point. So Bruce Jenner and I were getting pedicures next to each other, and he was asking me, because this was a civil
Polish
union.
or buff?
I was going toenail polish because I was getting black. I think he was going buff. Yeah. And
that's a very metrosexual thing to do. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I do.
Yeah.
I get pedicure, but
I didn't get any
buff.
I didn't get any read from
start
him
doing
on
polish. There has to
Yeah.
be. You have to. Well,
I didn't get
polish would look okay on you because it goes with the look.
Right.
But if I were to get polish, like a clear polish on there, I'm like,
I didn't get any read from him on what was to come, but I remember we were talking a lot about, because this was like not a formal it was like a civil union or whatever, and he was saying to me, he's like, so what's your understanding of this whole civil union business? And we were having the conversation. Now, as I look back on it, I think, hey, maybe he was thinking down the line because this was back before gay marriage was pretty much legal everywhere. Maybe he's thinking about, hey, at some point, if I go through what I'm thinking about and want to take a bride or a groom.
is he gay or is he just like to dress like women? 'Cause
Well,
one doesn't necessarily mean the other, right?
Right. My understanding is I don't think he's had the downstairs surgery, or at least he hasn't been public about that. I don't know who he gets in relationships with, but there was nothing. In fact, it was so not like any indication of that. It was the opposite of it, because at one point we're in the pool and I look over across the pool, and also in this pool is Cheryl Tiegs. Do you know who Cheryl Tiegs was?
I do know that name.
She was one of the first in the 70s, like, swimsuit supermodels.
Okay.
Like, she was, Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue.
Okay,
So, like,
okay.
when this was first coming into vogue, I mean, she was like the Pam Anderson of her time. You had the poster up on your wall as a kid or whatever. And she's in the pool, I'm like, hey, there's Cheryl Teagues. And Bruce Jenner starts talking about, oh my gosh, we did this, campaign ad for some, I don't know if it was a beer or soft drink or something in the 70s. And hey, Cheryl, remember when we were posing with that Corvette and that ad got in, a million magazines, whatever it was, they were having that conversation. And I'm hearing this and thinking, boy, that's just the ultimate 1970s male, isn't it? Bruce Jenner, the Olympic athlete, the babe magnet, the, good-looking guy and all that kind of stuff. And then, I'll tell you what, I'll bring in pictures sometime from that wedding because I have some pictures I think now that would be interesting to share. So anyway, there's my Bruce Jenner story.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Let's do it. Seems like a good one to end on. All right, couple of things. Number one, do us a favor. Go to iTunes, look up Phone Booth Fighting. If you haven't already subscribed, do that. Click the subscribe button. But also, click on the 5 stars. It gives us a very good rating. Also, if you have a moment or two, write a favorable line in the review section, and that helps us out a lot. If you want to watch the show as well as listen, if you're not already there, check out our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel and tell a friend about this show. That's how we're going to grow it organically. There's a couple of ways you can help us financially that are of no additional cost to you. And for more on that Amazon banner on the front of phoneboothfighting.com, here's Frank Mir.
Follow my lead. I've been actually doing it quite a bit lately. Click on our Phone Booth Fighting. You'll see a little banner there. Click on the Amazon banner. By doing so, it transports you directly to Amazon. And now when you do all your shopping, anything you purchase, a small percentage comes back to us here at the show.
Yep, that's it.
I got it saved on my phone.
Yep, thank you.
You'll see a couple weird little neck machines.
That's you, huh?
That was me, dude.
Okay.
Cowboy collars for the kids.
Oh, you guys see what you buy?
You can't see who bought it.
Oh, okay.
But you could see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with this. You need to tell all your fellow workers to buy it.
No, that's funny because
Let's see if we can get them to blush.
Yeah. You know what we should do is it is kind of fun to highlight some of the more unusual purchases. I remember one time somebody bought a Pittsburgh Steelers garden gnome through our banner, and I said something about it on the air and got the email from the guy, hey, that was me. I bought that for my buddy who's a big Steelers fan. So however you do it, I mean, we had one guy that basically outfitted a whole home theater, and we appreciate that because that amounted to a nice little percentage. And again, you know, it's no additional cost to you. If anything, you're just sticking it to Amazon, and we're all good with that. All right, Frank, tell everybody how to follow us on social media.
Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us at Phone Booth Fighting. If you want on Snapchat or Twitter, it's just Phone Booth Fight.
That's it. For Frank Mir and for Porno Mikey over in the news department, the newly created news department, man on the
news and weather.
The beat. Yeah, absolutely. Did a nice job of that. I am Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here next time for another edition of Phone Booth Fighting.